They saw humans as prey. We saw them already dead. Part 1. The warning came at midnight. Kyle Morrison sat alone in the communications room of New Haven Colony. The screens in front of him showed nothing but stars and the endless black of space. He was tired. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. The night shift was always quiet on this small world at the edge of human territory. Then his console lit up with an incoming signal. Kyle sat up straight. Signals from deep space were rare. Ships usually announced themselves days in advance. This one came from nowhere, strong and clear, cutting through the static like a knife. He opened the channel. The face that appeared on his screen was not human. It had gray skin stretched tight over a skull that was too long. Its eyes were yellow with black slits in the center, like a snake. When it opened its mouth, Kyle saw rows of teeth meant for tearing meat. The creature spoke in a voice that was calm and cold. Humans of this world, we are the Vraxith. We have claimed this system. You have 72 hours to surrender yourselves. After that time, the hunt will begin. Do not run. Do not hide. It will only make things more enjoyable for us. The transmission ended. Kyle stared at the blank screen. His hands were shaking. He had heard stories about the Vraxith. Every human who traveled the stars had heard them. They were hunters. They moved from world to world, taking what they wanted. They did not conquer for land or resources. They conquered because they enjoyed the killing. Dozens of species had fallen to them. Entire civilizations had been reduced to prey. Kyle picked up his communicator and called. Commander Danny Carter. Danny arrived at the communications room 15 minutes later. He was a tall man in his 50s, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. He had served in the military for 30 years before retiring to this quiet colony. He thought his fighting days were over. He watched the recorded transmission without saying a word. When it finished, he played it again. Then he turned to Kyle. Wake everyone up, Danny said. Every adult in this colony. Meeting in the main hall in 1 hour. Kyle hesitated. Sir, should we start the evacuation? Maybe we can get some people off-world before they arrive. Danny shook his head. There is no evacuation. Their ships are already in the system. They would shoot down anything we launch. He paused. We are not running, Kyle. Get everyone to the main hall. Now. 1 hour later, the hall was full. 342 people lived in New Haven. Farmers, engineers, teachers, doctors, families with children. They sat in rows of chairs, their faces showing fear and confusion. Many had been pulled from their beds. They did not know what was happening. Danny stood at the front of the room with Dr. Megan Price beside him. Megan was the colony's chief medical officer, a woman with steady hands and a sharp mind. She and Danny had known each other for 20 years. Danny told them everything. He played the transmission so everyone could see and hear it for themselves. When it finished, silence filled the room. A woman in the front row spoke first. Her voice was shaking. What do we do? We have no military here. We have no weapons. We are just colonists. Danny looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at the rest of them. You are wrong, he said. You think because we farm and build and raise children, we have forgotten what we are. You think because we left Earth and spread across the stars, we stopped being dangerous. He shook his head slowly. We have not forgotten anything. Every human in this room carries 200,000 years of survival in their blood. We did not become the dominant species on Earth by being weak. We did it by being the most dangerous thing on our planet. You let that sink in. The Vraxith think they know what hunting means. They think they understand predators. They've never met humans before. They look at us and see soft skin and no claws and think we are easy prey. That is going to be the last mistake they ever make. A man near the back stood up. But what can we do against them? They have ships, weapons, technology we cannot match. Danny smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They have all those things. And it will not matter. Because we are not going to fight them on their terms. We are going to fight them on ours. He began to explain. The colony would be evacuated, but not off-world. They would move into the wilderness, into the mountains and forests that surrounded the settlement. The buildings would be left behind, but not empty. They would become traps. We are going to let them land, Danny said. We are going to let them think they have won. And then we are going to show them what happens when you hunt humans. Over the next 6 hours, the colony transformed. Families with children were moved to hidden shelters deep in the mountains, protected by armed guards. Every adult who could fight was given a weapon and a role. They worked through the night, setting explosives, digging trenches, creating ambush points. By dawn, New Haven was empty. The streets were silent. Food still sat on tables. Clothes hung on lines. It looked like the people had fled in panic. It was a lie. Kyle sent a response to the Vraxith transmission. It was short and simple. We accept your hunt. But you should know something. Humans have been the top predator on our world for 200,000 years. Nothing has hunted us and lived. You will not be the first. Far above the planet, the Vraxith fleet received the message. Huntmaster Korax read it and laughed. He had heard such words before. Every species said something brave before the killing began. It never mattered. He gave the order to begin the descent. The hunt was starting. But Korax did not know that he was not the hunter. He was the prey. They saw humans as prey. We saw them already dead. Part 2. The Vraxith dropships came down through the clouds like metal birds. There were 6 of them, each carrying 20 hunters. They landed in a wide circle around New Haven Colony, their engines kicking up dust and debris. Huntmaster Korax was the first to step onto human soil. He was tall even by Vraxith standards, nearly 8 feet from head to toe. His gray skin was marked with scars from dozens of hunts. His yellow eyes scanned the empty streets of the colony with amusement. Spread out, he ordered his hunters. Find their trail. They cannot have gone far. The Vraxith moved through the colony in packs of 5. They used thermal sensors to search for body heat. They sniffed the air, their enhanced senses picking up traces of human scent. They found signs of recent activity everywhere. Warm food, fresh footprints in the dirt. Doors left open. One of the hunters reported back to Korax. They fled in panic, Huntmaster. The trail leads into the forest. They are running blind. Korax smiled, showing his teeth. Good, let them run. It makes the chase more enjoyable. He did not notice the thin wire hidden in the doorway of the building beside him. He did not see the small camera mounted on the roof, watching his every move. 3 miles away, in a cave hidden by thick brush, Lieutenant Amy Fletcher watched the Vraxith on a tablet screen. She was a small woman with short brown hair and hands that were never still. Before coming to New Haven, she had spent 15 years as a combat engineer in the military. She had built things. She had also destroyed them. They are taking the bait, she said into her radio. All teams stand by. Danny's voice came back through her earpiece. Copy that. Let them get comfortable. Wait for my signal. Pete Lawson crouched beside Amy, watching the screen. He was a hunter by trade, a man who had spent his whole life tracking animals through wilderness. His face was weathered by sun and wind. His eyes missed nothing. They move like pack predators, Pete said quietly. They are used to prey that runs. They do not expect anything else. Amy nodded. That is going to cost them. In the colony, the Vraxith grew bolder. They entered buildings, searching for hidden humans. They found none. The settlement was empty. Some of the younger hunters began to mock the humans. laughing about how easily they had fled. Corax entered what looked like a meeting hall. Chairs were knocked over. A projector still hummed with power. It looked like the humans had abandoned everything in their rush to escape. He walked to the center of the room and looked around with contempt. These creatures build homes of glass and wood. They have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. How did they ever survive on their own world? He did not see the pressure plate under the floor. Danny watched from a ridge 2 miles away. He held a small detonator in his hand. Beside him, Megan checked the medical supplies one more time. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Once we start, there is no going back." Danny kept his eyes on the colony. "They came here to hunt us, Megan. They came to kill our families, our children. They see us as animals to be slaughtered for sport." His grip tightened on the detonator. "We are going to show them what animals can do." He pressed the button. The meeting hall exploded. The blast tore through the building, sending stone and metal flying in all directions. Corax was thrown 20 feet, his body burned and broken. 3 hunters near him were killed instantly. Then the other traps went off. Buildings across the colony erupted in fire and thunder. Explosives hidden in walls, under floors, inside furniture. The Vraxith had walked right into a killing ground. The survivors stumbled out into the streets, confused and bleeding. They had never faced anything like this. Their prey had never fought back before. That was when the shooting started. Human snipers had been waiting in hidden positions around the colony since dawn. They lay in tall grass, behind rocks, up in trees. They had covered themselves in mud to hide their heat signatures. They had not moved for hours. Now they fired. The first Vraxith hunter fell with a hole in his chest. Then another. Then another. The shots came from everywhere and nowhere. The aliens could not see their attackers. They could not find targets to fight. Corax pulled himself up from the rubble. Half his face was burned black. One of his arms hung useless at his side. He screamed into his communicator. "All units fall back. Fall back to the dropships." But the dropships were already gone. Pete Lawson's team had reached them while the Vraxith were distracted. Explosive charges had been placed on the fuel lines. The ships were burning wreckage now. The Vraxith were trapped on the ground. For 3 hours, the battle continued. The humans never showed themselves. They struck from the shadows, picked off isolated hunters, then disappeared. The Vraxith tried to regroup, tried to form defensive positions, but the humans knew this land. They had mapped every hill, every gully, every hiding spot. By sunset, Corax had lost 40 of his 120 hunters. The rest were scattered, frightened, and running low on ammunition. He finally managed to send a message to the fleet in orbit. "These are not prey," he said. His voice filled with something the Vraxith rarely felt: fear. "These humans, they are not running. They are hunting us. Send reinforcements. Send everything you have." High above, Fleet Commander Tharvox received the message. He listened to Corax's panicked words with disbelief. This was impossible. The Vraxith had conquered dozens of worlds. No prey had ever fought back like this. He gave the order to send more troops, on the ground. Danny received word of the incoming reinforcements. He smiled grimly. "Good," he said. "Let them send more. We are just getting started." The night was coming, and humans had always been most dangerous in the dark. They saw humans as prey. We saw them already dead. Part 3 night fell over New Haven like a black curtain. The twin moons of Kepler 442b gave only faint light through the thick clouds. The forest became a maze of shadows and silence. The Vraxith reinforcements had landed 2 hours before sunset. 200 fresh hunters joined the survivors of the first wave. They brought heavy weapons, thermal scanners, and armored vehicles. Fleet Commander Tharvox had sent his best troops to end this embarrassment. Huntmaster Korax, his wounds treated but his pride still bleeding, briefed the new arrivals. "Forget what you think you know about these creatures," he told them. "They are not like other prey. They set traps. They use weapons. They do not run." He paused, his yellow eyes dark with anger. "But they are still just flesh and blood. We have numbers and firepower. We will find them and we will kill them all." The Vraxith spread out into the forest in hunting parties of 20. Their thermal sensors swept the darkness, searching for the heat signatures of human bodies. They moved carefully now, no longer laughing or joking. The burning colony behind them was a reminder that these prey had teeth. What they did not know was that the humans had been preparing for this night for hours. Sergeant Nate Collins lay flat on his belly, in a shallow trench covered with branches and leaves. He had smeared cold mud over every inch of exposed skin. A thermal blanket, the kind used by hikers to retain body heat, was wrapped around him in reverse, trapping his warmth inside and showing nothing to sensors. He was invisible. 4 other humans lay in similar positions nearby. They had not moved in 3 hours. They barely breathed. They watched the Vraxith patrol walk directly past them, close enough to touch. Nate counted the aliens. 20 of them, moving in a loose formation through the trees. They were confident, their weapons ready, their sensors glowing in the darkness. He waited until the last one passed his position. Then he rose from the ground like a ghost. His knife found the throat of the rear guard before the alien could make a sound. The body fell silently into the leaves. Nate caught it and lowered it down, then moved to the next target. His team did the same in 30 seconds. 5 Vraxith were dead. The rest of the patrol continued walking, unaware that their numbers had shrunk. By the time they realized something was wrong, 8 more had fallen. The survivors turned and fired wildly into the darkness. Their energy weapons lit up the forest with bright flashes of light. They hit nothing but trees and empty air. The humans were already gone. This scene repeated across the forest, all through the night. Small teams of humans struck from nowhere, killed quickly and quietly, then vanished before the Vraxith could respond. They used the terrain, the darkness, and the confusion to their advantage. 3 miles from the main battle, Claire Mason sat alone on a mountain ridge. She was 42 years old, a farmer's wife who had spent her whole life on frontier worlds. She had learned to shoot before she learned to read. On her home planet, her father had taught her to hunt animals that could kill a man in seconds. She had become very good at it. Now she looked through the scope of her rifle at a Vraxith scouting party moving through a valley below. There were 12 of them. They thought they were safe at this distance from the colony. They were wrong. Claire controlled her breathing. Her heartbeat slowed. Her finger rested gently on the trigger. She picked her first target, the one in the back who carried a communication device. She fired. The alien dropped. The others spun around, searching for the shooter. They saw nothing. The shot had come from over 1,000 meters away, far beyond what they thought human weapons could reach. Claire worked the bolt of her rifle and found her second target. She fired again. Another body fell. Over the next hour, she killed all 12 of them. She never moved from her position. She never missed a shot. When the last one fell, she packed up her rifle and disappeared into the mountains. By midnight, the Vraxith had lost another 60 hunters. The forest was full of their bodies. Those who remained had stopped searching for humans. They were too busy trying to stay alive. Karax received reports from his scattered units. Panic filled every voice. His hunters were being picked off one by one. They could not see their attackers. They could not fight back. They were dying in the dark like helpless animals. He screamed into his communicator. "Pull back." Everyone pull back to the landing zone. We will hold there until dawn. But the retreat was just as deadly as the hunt. Human teams had anticipated this move. They had placed traps along the likely retreat paths. Explosive devices buried in the ground. Tripwires connected to grenades. Pits covered with thin branches. The Raxith stumbled into one trap after another. Every step cost them lives. Danny watched the chaos from a hidden command post deep in the forest. Kyle sat beside him, monitoring communications. The reports from their teams were all positive. The plan was working. "They are breaking," Kyle said, his voice filled with amazement. "They are actually running from us." Danny nodded slowly. "They came here thinking they were the hunters. They thought we would scatter and hide and wait to be killed." He looked out into the darkness. "They did not understand what humans are. We are not prey. We never were." At dawn, the surviving Vraxith finally reached their landing zone. Out of 200 hunters who had entered the forest, fewer than 80 remained. They were exhausted, terrified, and broken. Karax looked at his shattered army. For the first time in his long career as a hunter, he felt something he had never felt before. He felt like prey. He sent one final message to the fleet. His voice was hollow and defeated. "Request immediate extraction. The ground is lost. I repeat, the ground is lost. These humans are not what we expected. They are not prey. They are something else entirely." High above, Tharvox listened to the message with growing rage. This was unacceptable. A handful of colonists had humiliated the greatest hunters in the galaxy, thought he would end this himself. From orbit, but he did not know that something was waiting for him in the darkness of space. Something that had been watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The humans were not done yet. They saw humans as prey. "We saw them already dead." Part 4 Fleet Commander Tharvox stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer. Through the viewport, he could see the planet below, peaceful and green. Hiding the disaster that had unfolded on its surface, his hunters, the finest warriors the Vraxith had ever produced, had been slaughtered by farmers and colonists. It was impossible. It was humiliating. And it would end now. "Charge the orbital cannons," Tharvox ordered. "We will burn their hiding places from the sky. Let them run from that." His officers moved to obey. The weapon systems of the Devourer hummed with power. The ship carried enough firepower to turn the entire colony region into glass and ash. Tharvox smiled. If the humans wanted a war, he would give them extinction. That was when the first missile struck his ship. The Devourer shook with the impact. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Tharvox grabbed the console to keep from falling. "Report," he shouted. "Where did that come from?" His sensor officer stared at his screen with wide eyes. "Ships, Commander. Human ships. They came from the asteroid belt. They were hiding there the whole time." 3 vessels emerged from the darkness of space. They were smaller than Vraxith warships, built for speed rather than size. Their hulls were painted black, making them nearly invisible against the void dot at the head of the formation was the USS Defiance. Captain Hannah Brooks sat in the command chair, her eyes fixed on the Vraxith fleet. She was a thin woman in her 40s, with hair tied back in a tight bun and a face that rarely showed emotion. She had commanded warships for 15 years. She had fought battles across human space and never lost. She had been waiting in the asteroid belt for 3 days, watching the Vraxith, learning their patterns, preparing for this moment. "All ships engage," she said calmly. "Target their weapons and engines. I want prisoners, not debris." The 3 human ships swept toward the Vraxith fleet with deadly speed. The aliens outnumbered them 4-1, but numbers meant nothing against human tactics. The Defiance fired another volley of missiles. then immediately changed course, diving beneath the Ragzith formation. The alien gunners tried to track her, but she was too fast, too unpredictable. She appeared on one side, fired, then vanished and reappeared somewhere else. The other two human ships did the same. They fought like wolves, darting in and out, never staying still, never giving the enemy a clean shot. Tharvok screamed orders, but his fleet was in chaos. His ships were designed to intimidate and overwhelm. They were not built for a fight like this. The humans struck where they were weakest, avoided where they were strongest, and disappeared before his heavy weapons could lock on. One by one, his ships went dark. Engines destroyed. Weapons disabled. The humans were crippling his fleet without destroying it. "Why are they not killing us?" one of his officers asked, confused. "They have us beaten. Why hold back?" Darvox understood. His blood ran cold. "They want us alive," he said quietly. "They want witnesses." On the surface, Danny received word that the space battle was going well. The Vraxith fleet was being dismantled piece by piece. It was time to finish this. He gathered his remaining fighters. 50 men and women, tired and dirty, but still ready for one last push. They moved through the forest toward the Vraxith landing zone, where the surviving hunters had gathered in a desperate defensive circle. Pete Lawson led the way, reading the ground like a book. He found the weak points in the alien defenses, the gaps in their lines, the places where tired guards had let their attention slip. "They are scared," Pete said quietly. "I can smell it on them. They know they have lost." Danny nodded. "Then let us finish this." The attack came from all sides at once. Humans rose from the shadows, firing with precision. Explosions tore through the Vraxith defensive positions. The aliens fought back, but they were exhausted and demoralized. Many threw down their weapons and surrendered. Korax refused to give up. He stood in the center of his shattered camp, firing at anything that moved, screaming in rage. A human bullet hit his leg and he fell. Another hit his remaining good arm. His weapon dropped from his fingers. He lay on the ground, helpless. As Danny walked toward him, the human looked down at the huntmaster with cold eyes. There was no triumph in his face, no joy, only the grim satisfaction of a job completed. "You came here to hunt us," Danny said. "You looked at us and saw prey. Weak creatures without claws or fangs, easy targets for your sport." Korax snarled up at him, blood leaking from his wounds. "You are prey. All soft species are prey. This changes nothing." Danny crouched down beside the alien. His voice was quiet and calm. "You want to know a secret? On our world, we have hunted predators to extinction. Lions, tigers, wolves, bears. Creatures with claws and fangs and natural weapons that should have made them kings. They are gone now. We killed them all." He paused. "Do you know why? Because we are not prey. We have never been prey. We are the apex predator of Earth. And we carry that in our blood wherever we go." He stood up and looked around at the captured Vraxith, the burning equipment, the bodies of fallen hunters. "You came here thinking you would add another trophy to your collection. Instead, you learned something important." He looked back down at Korax. "You learned that when you hunt humans, you are not the predator. You are the target." Korax said nothing. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say above the planet. The battle ended. Tharvok surrendered his crippled fleet. The Devourer drifted in space, powerless, its commander a prisoner on his own bridge. Hannah Brooks looked at the defeated alien with no sympathy. "You made a mistake," she told him. "You thought because we spread across the stars and built colonies and made peace with other species, we had forgotten how to make war. We have not forgotten. We just choose not to. There is a difference." Tharvok stared at the deck. He had no answer. The battle for New Haven was over. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy was about to learn a lesson that the Vraxith would never forget. Humans were not prey. They never had been. They saw humans as prey. We saw them already dead, Part 5. The prisoners were held in the ruins of their own landing zone. 73 Vraxith hunters and 15 ship officers sat in the dirt. Their weapons taken, their pride shattered. They were guarded by the same humans they had come to hunt. Danny stood before them as the morning sun rose over the mountains. Behind him, the colonists of New Haven were already beginning the work of rebuilding. Children who had hidden in caves for 3 days ran through the fields, laughing. Life was returning to normal. For the humans, at least. Korax sat apart from the others, his wounds bandaged, his yellow eyes empty. He had been the greatest hunter of his generation. He had led campaigns across a dozen worlds. Now he was a prisoner of creatures he had considered little more than animals. Danny approached him. Your fleet is destroyed. Your hunters are dead or captured. The hunt is over. Korax looked up at him slowly. What do you want from me? Execution? Torture? I will give you nothing. Danny shook his head. We do not want anything from you except one thing. We want you to deliver a message. He signaled to Kyle, who carried a portable display screen. Kyle set it down in front of Korax and pressed a button. Images began to play. Human history. Not the pretty parts, not the art and music and poetry. The other parts. The parts that most species never saw. Wars that had killed millions. Weapons that could crack planets. Predators hunted to extinction. Enemies destroyed so completely that nothing remained but ash and memory. 200,000 years of blood and death and survival against every challenge the universe could throw at them. The Vraxith watched in silence. Their eyes grew wider with each passing image. They had thought humans were soft. They had thought humans were weak. They had never imagined this. The display ended. Danny looked at Korax. You will take this back to your people. You will show them what we are. And you will give them a warning. He leaned closer. If the Vraxith ever hunt humans again, we will not stop at defending ourselves. We will come to your homeworld. We will burn your cities. We will hunt you the way you have hunted others for centuries. And we will not stop until the word Vraxith is nothing but a forgotten whisper in the darkness. Korax stared at him. There was no defiance left in his eyes. Only fear. Why? He asked. Why show us mercy? We would not have done the same for you. Danny straightened up. Because that is the difference between us. We have the power to destroy you completely. We are choosing not to. Remember that. And remember that we can change our minds. 3 days later, a single Vraxith ship was repaired enough to fly. The prisoners were loaded aboard, including Korax and Tharvox. They were given enough fuel to reach Vraxith space and nothing more. Before the ship departed, Danny spoke to Tharvox one final time. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that a single human colony, with 3 small ships and a few hundred farmers, defeated the greatest hunters in the galaxy. Tell them that we were not even trying our hardest. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell them to think very carefully before they look at humans as prey again. The ship lifted off and disappeared into the sky. 1 week later, a session of the Galactic Council was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. The human ambassador, a quiet woman named Ellen Grant, requested permission to address the assembly. The council chamber was filled with representatives from 100 different species. Many of them had dismissed humans as a minor power, a young race with soft bodies and no natural weapons. Some had even suggested that humans would eventually be conquered by a stronger species. Now they listened. As Ellen told them about New Haven, the Vraxith came to our colony world expecting to hunt us like Animals, she said. They found something different. They found that humans do not run. They found that humans do not surrender. And they found that when you threaten our families, our homes, and our children, we become something very dangerous indeed. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. I know many of you think we are weak. We have no claws. We have no armor. We do not look like warriors. But you have made the same mistake the Vraxith made. You have confused being peaceful with being harmless. She paused. We are peaceful because we choose to be, not because we have to be. There is a difference. The chamber was silent. Every species there knew about the Vraxith. They were feared across the galaxy. The idea that simple colonists had defeated them was almost impossible to believe. A representative from the Korthan Alliance spoke up. How did you win? The Vraxith have conquered species far more advanced than your colony. Ellen smiled slightly. We won because they did not understand what we are. On our homeworld, we were not the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. But we survived. We survived ice ages and predators and diseases that killed millions. We survived because we are adaptable, creative, and absolutely relentless when we need to be. The Vraxith thought they were hunting animals. They were hunting the most successful predator Earth ever produced. On New Haven, life continued. The colony was rebuilt within months. The people who had fought in the battle returned to their normal lives, farming and building and raising their families. Danny Carter sat on the porch of his small house, watching the sunset. Megan sat beside him, a cup of coffee in her hands. Do you think they will ever come back? She asked. The Vraxith, I mean. Danny shook his head slowly. No, they learned their lesson. They will tell stories about what happened here for generations. Stories about the prey that hunted back. Megan smiled. Is that what we are now? The monsters that other monsters tell stories about? Danny thought about that for a moment. Maybe, or maybe we are just humans. We are peaceful when we can be and dangerous when we have to be. We protect our own. We do not start fights, but we finish them. He looked at her. That is who we have always been. The galaxy is just learning it now. Across the stars, the warning spread. In Vraxith space, the survivors of New Haven told their story. In council chambers and trading posts and military bases, species that had once dismissed humans began to pay attention. They learned a new truth. Humans were not prey. Humans were not weak. Humans were something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. They were the quiet predator, the sleeping giant, the species that had conquered its own world and spread across the stars, not because they were peaceful, but because they had chosen to be. And if you made them choose differently, if you threatened what they loved, if you gave them a reason to remember what they truly were, you would not survive the lesson. The Vraxith had learned. The galaxy would. Remember, and humans would continue to walk among the stars, peaceful and friendly and harmless, until they were not.